So that right there is exactly why when you're fishing in deep water, you need to be keeping the fish that you're catching. So if I were to guess, right now we're probably sitting out above like maybe 25 feet or so. And that was a tiny little crappie that someone tried to release and it didn't end up making it, obviously. So just because a fish kicks off does not mean that it's gonna survive. More often than not, if it's in really deep water like that and barotrauma happens, it's gonna end up on the top of the ice. And if there's snow all over the ice, you're not gonna see it. But we had some recent snow melt and now you can see it down there. So anyway, we're gonna chase some basin crappies tonight and get some fish for the frying pan. Last time I tried to show you basically some of the mega live views with the basin crappies. We had some GoPro issues right here. So we're gonna try one more time and I'm gonna drop the old transducer down the hole and I'll show you what these crappies look like out in the basin. All right, so first things first, what we're gonna do is we are gonna set this thing up in forward mode. So we can kind of look around and basically there's little ticks on the side of this, but 1, 2, 3, 4. So now this thing is ready to go in forward mode and drop it in the water. Make sure I got my settings correct. I have it in down right now. Here's forward. Okay. Now, basically all you do is spin it around and see if there's any crappies in the area. So right now, we're in 25 feet of water and there's one almost directly behind me, but that is definitely not what we're looking for. This might be a waiting game, but in the meantime, I'm gonna drill some more holes around this basin area and pan around and see if I can find the crappies. In theory, I shouldn't have to drill a ton of holes to cover at least a good chunk of this basin. And it's not like the fish are only gonna be in one little spot in this good sized basin. There should be a number of schools. So basically what I'm looking for right now is one of those schools. So strategically when I'm drilling holes and looking around, basically what I'm looking for is those fish up off the bottom, but I'm drilling the holes like, because I can see out to about 60 feet right now, at least how I have this thing set up. I'm drilling my holes about 100 feet apart. So really pretty minimal compared to if you just came out here and you were looking for fish. You would kind of pick an area, maybe drop like 10 holes, hop around, see if you mark anything with the 2D sonar. And if not, then you might move to a different section of the basin. But this way I can kind of rule out large chunks of the basin at one time. So you can see right across here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's another one a little bit off to the left of that. 30 feet that way, there should be a school of fish. This is where I drilled my hole, but as you can see, the fish have kind of vacated that area. They're actually a little bit over to the right, so we may have to track them down a little bit. Oh, and you can see one fish out, or a couple of fish out here on the left. And yeah, I think I see one right there on the bottom too, possibly. But we're gonna drop down. We're gonna jig in this hole a little bit. It's pretty obvious based on watching the electronics so far that the fish are moving. So also you'll notice that I'm pulling the line out of my reel, and the reason why I do that is because it just helps straighten out the line, get the coils out, which can be really important. Coils are never ideal when you're fishing for panfish and you're trying to get kind of that visual bite detection, but it's even worse when you're in deep water because the problem actually compounds Oop. And it's always good to pull the line out just to get a good feel for your drag as well. So getting that coil out can be really big. I think I have to get that sensitivity up a little. We got one fish on us right away. There we go. Wow, that really didn't take long, did it? Right now I have the transducer in the same hole. It's possible we get tangled up on the way in here. I like to actually drill a second hole for this when I can. Oh man, and this is just a relatively tiny little crappie right here. But because we're fishing in pretty darn deep water, we have to keep what we're catching today. So I'm gonna drop back down. There's actually, that looks like a better fish, or it might be a number of fish coming over. Oh no, it's a number of fish coming over on the right side of the screen. And there's still more fish on the left side here. So we are gonna drop down and get right back down to them. I'm gonna crank that sensitivity up a couple more. These tiny little tungsten jigs can be hard to see. Look at all those fish coming in on the right side of the screen. How cool is that? These fish are really roaming around. If you have ever come out for a basin bite and you've tried to look during the day, more often than not, you're probably wasting your time. Maybe on some of those dirtier bodies of water, it might come into play. But on clear bodies of water, you can really just forget it. Look at how fast he's coming up. There we go. And she doesn't feel like a monster. I'll just say that right now. But really cool watching him strike on the live there. Okay, all right. The biggest fish yet. Not. Okay, not ideal. But I will stress again, the fact that barotrauma is a factor right now means that I'm gonna keep this fish, because if I release it, it's gonna end up on the bottom side of the ice, just like that first fish that I showed you. We're gonna move spots despite the fact that there's like a million crappies swimming around underneath us right now. All right, so I tracked us down a few more crappies, as you can see right here. Handful out here on the left and the right and the middle, I guess. There's a lot of crappies. So anyway, we're gonna check the size structure of these fish. Jig them on up. I've talked about, oh, here he comes. Watch the rod tip. It's really fun to watch the screen, but when that fish converges, you need to be watching. When the fish converges on your bait, you gotta be watching the rod tip, because panfish bite softly, and you're not gonna feel it almost all the time. And unfortunately, not a giant. So we were actually catching better fish last time I was out here basin chasing, which was a handful of videos ago. But these fish are not super terrible. I would say we can make a meal out of these when we get 10. When I'm chasing a little bit bigger fish, I'll generally tend to not actually keep quite as many. I feel like you don't really need your limit. But when we're out chasing fish that maybe aren't quite as large, in those situations, then I'll often keep a limit. And sometimes, you know, right now there's just so many stinking fish in this particular lake, in this basin, that it probably doesn't hurt to get a few of them harvested out of here. So someone asked in the comments section why he sees so many people on YouTube using tiny little baits. And I was using a tiny little tungsten. Because he said that, and these fish are pretty snappy, we're gonna try a bigger bait. So this right here is the coffin spoon. It's kind of one of the more moderate sizes, actually maybe a maybe a little bit big for crappies, especially if there's no like big giant slabs in here. But one thing I do like about this is the fact that it's probably gonna select for some of the bigger fish in the school. So we're gonna drop it down and see if we can catch a fish on it, but also see if, you know, maybe we catch a bigger fish on it. Sometimes when the bait falls, it falls off to the side just based on the shape of the bait. And what that means is it can be tough to, there we go, that's a bite. It can actually fall out of the cone angle of your sonar. There it is right there. On the spoon, not a giant. So this is just like my go-to panfish setup. It's a 32-inch rod. It's got a really fast action. He just turned around. I think he really wants to bite. Or he's at least considering it. This fish is still hanging out here. I have a theory that these might be some larger crappies if we can get them to go. I still have that spoon on. If I had the little jig, it's possible we may have hooked up with one of these fish. Potentially. Maybe it's not meant to be. Maybe this light is too bright on my face. Regardless, hopefully you're enjoying this content. I'm actually just like 1 or 2 fish away from filling out my limit of, you know, reasonable size peanut eaters. I might not be feeding the family tonight. If you have been following along for this entire series, I want to thank you. And if you're new to this series, you might not know, but you're watching one of 30. And obviously 30 has not come out yet. If you check the title of these videos, you can see how far along we are in the journey. Basically, what we're doing is fishing 30 days in a row, and we're kicking out a video for every single one of them. Been my first season using the Mega Live. Obviously, it's a pretty new system, and I don't have a ton of experience with it, but I'm kind of learning. And there's a crappie down there right now. A little bit more apprehensive with the big spoon. If we had that tiny little jig, I'm sure we would be having less problems with some of these fish coming in. But that's why we like to use the little micro baits, because it's just tough to beat a jig for just, you know, getting fussy fish to bite. Thank you for watching all the way to the end, and we will see you in tomorrow's video.